Welcome, everyone, to the inaugural episode of the Think, Change, Repeat podcast. It is something that has been a long time coming for me and paired with a lot of procrastination and hemming and hawing. And finally, we got here. And I think that it was an auspicious beginning. And I do want to say that I had a lot of people that were supporting me, helping me get to this point and doing things for me, really lovely gestures. And I'm going to mention that later when we talk about the chat. But I just want to thank those people so much for all the encouragement and everything that they've given me. And then today, you notice I don't have the lovely intro like the Nights of the Storm, but we're going to be working all of that stuff out. But the main thing is that I am here with my very special guest, Renee Devereaux. And we also may be joined by Karen Carpenter from Nights of the Storm a bit later. And Jason Barker has been in the background helping me get the stream set up. So I want to thank him as well. And without further ado, welcome, Renee. How are you doing today?
I'm so happy to be here and congratulations. And I'm so grateful that you invited me for the very first live stream that you are doing by yourself. Yes, you're going to have your partners or other people, but nevertheless, this is your show. So I'm so thrilled for you. I knew that it was coming. Sooner or later, it would be yours.
Yes. And, we had a conversation this past week and the opportunity arose because we were talking and I said, well, what can I do? And you said, we can have a conversation because you have something important coming up and we're going to be getting into that. We're going to be talking about what got you to this point. But before all of that, I want you to tell people what you have going on, when it's coming up, and how they can participate.
All right, thank you. Well, it's a workshop and it's based on my book. My second book is Freedom and Empowerment Through Entrepreneurship. That is the name of the book. And the webinar will be I've been doing them it's always a small group because it's a limited attention span for people who are really in earnest. And why I love your show, it's think, change, because it is about thinking and changing. It's not for everyone. I'm not here to hold people's hands and just justify unacceptable behavior. I am here for those who have done and worked so long and they're still not achieving the transformation that they've been seeking. What I do is I make the mind, body, soul connection. I connect illnesses to the spiritual path. You see, the illnesses have been there, maybe chronic, maybe new, but they're indicators that something has to change. It is part of the spiritual message from your soul saying, pay attention. Often that prodding from the soul comes somewhere after 40, sometimes 45, and sometimes it hits the hardest when we get into our 50s. And maybe that second Saturn return that many are familiar with can really push people over the edge. Between 54 and 60, it's a critical time for men and women who have been maybe aware about a spiritual path but haven't really embraced it. It's there somewhere in the ether. They know that that's why we're here. It is a spiritual journey. Yet most people will skirt around it or try to find other ways of avoiding what is unavoidable. So I'm here to help those who are ready to make those changes. And that webinar is called Freedom Through Entrepreneurship at my website, freedomthroughentrpreneurship.com. And there you can get more details and sign up. Connect with me if if it's something calling to you and you are committed to make the changes. At this time in our evolutionary process, I think it's not something that we can push aside much longer, not with the changes in our world, not with what all is happening, what's going on. It's time. It's time. And I sense that those who avoid it or have been, getting along, they will meet themselves at some point in a dramatic way.
So let's talk about that a little bit, Renee. And I do want to get into the background. We have talked about that on the episode that you did with Knights of the Storm, but we're going to be looking into it in maybe a slightly different lens through the lens of entrepreneurship today. But you and I have had a lot of conversations, and this is, you've had a lot of influences that got you to this point. You've had a lot of life experience and a lot of education that has gotten you to this point. But one of the things that I kind of want to expound upon is when you're saying that a lot of times people have a feeling, they feel like something needs to change, or they perhaps have a blockage, or they want to do something, but yet, well, just like in this situation, I've wanted to do the podcast for a long time, but it took a lot of prodding and a lot of just maybe kismet or whatever you want to say to finally get this happening today. So, what is that you notice in people that prevents them from having an interest and something that they actually are very good at or could be very good at, could be an entrepreneur in, could provide for themselves in that way? Because one of the things that you talk about quite often is blockages, emotional and spiritual blockages. And we know that there's a lot of different things that people could have experienced in their life that got them there. But let's talk about that in terms of entrepreneurship. What do you see or see often with people or work on that you find to be the most effective to really move through that?
Thank you for that wonderful question. And plain and simple, it's fear that gets in the way. Yes, there is a critic often playing in the background saying, well, you're only this and you're not going to uh, amount to much. There's that voice that will be judging and criticizing. And that's definitely a blockage. Where did that voice come from? Was it an authority figure when you were a child? Is there one now, or is it just your fear of failure? Well, it's failure, but not really. The fear is there as, let's say, maybe denial, okay? That we're often fearful that people will not approve. You see, that really, and I want to be totally upfront with that, that is a major fear for everyone. And I care if it's a man or a woman. Men are just as self-conscious about fear. What will people think? Even though they're big, they're strong, they're whatever, but yet there's this voice that says, I'm not going to be liked, or people will disapprove if I get out and deliver my message. I will not be popular. I will, on and on and on. So that's an underlying story that I have found with almost everyone, that fear of being judged, being criticized, being not approved of. And this again, it can stem from many sources. I say, it can be an authority figure. It can be the family saying, "Oh, what are you thinking?" You know, always, what are you going to give up your job if that's a factor? How are you going to support the family? How are you going to support yourself? You see, so that uh, is something that needs to be addressed. And like I say, most people will deny that they're afraid. Yeah, that most
Yeah.
people, it's like you don't want to acknowledge that, yeah, at this point, at this age, or this whatever, yeah, there's fear. And that's what the biggest blockage.
Yes, I will agree with that because that is resonating with myself. Obviously, it feels, even though in my personal experience, I have been on shows with people, but it feels particularly vulnerable to kind of be doing your own thing. And there are fears of failure, or fears of not being accepted, or whatever that may be. So let's talk about when you have people coming into the work that you do with them. And like you said, you like to work in small groups. And my guess is that part of that is so that you can give people the attention that they deserve and really deep dive into the issues to really try to ascertain whatever blockage that may be, but likely fear based. Is that, would you agree with that?
Totally, totally. That's why I won't even sell my book unless you do the webinar, you see, because people will not really want to confront themselves, not to the level or to the degree that I confront them, because I can read people's energy, and I can see when they're holding back, when they're not being totally, let's say, honest with me, with themselves, and they want to hide behind the mask, behind whatever. And to get to what is really your essence, you would have to be able to strip down and see yourself as you are truly in the face of what has happened in your world, and the shame or whatever you have confronted or come upon. Consequently, yes, the webinar does take a lot out of me, because not only are we doing a group session per week, we're also doing a one-on-one per week. So it is a commitment, not just for my people, the participants, but for me, because I'm doing a double whammy here. I want to hold people's feet to the fire. It's like, no, please don't think you're going to get away with the lie or the mask that you're wearing. So let's get down. And the thing is that we're all human. Nobody's perfect. And the philosophy, or the, let's say, in our world, our culture, you're supposed to be excellent and be perfect and be this. The thing is that the lie is obvious. You are not oftentimes anywhere near excellent. You see, that can
I
be,
do see. Yes.
yes, yeah, you're far from it. It's an ideal. Absolutely. It's there. It's honorable, because we do know in our hearts and soul that we are created in the image of God. That is perfection, that right there. And what I love about humanity, and especially, my people who are conscious, it's like they know that that perfection is available, is attainable, and yet we're not there. And it's a step at a time. How do I build to be as close to that image that is in my consciousness, the peace of God that I want so earnestly, so deeply to connect to emulate, to embody. You see, that is alive in most people. It's alive, it's there. The ones that do work with me, they've done a lot of work already, yet they're missing the mark. They've traversed, they've traveled and made a lot of changes, but yet they can't quite grasp. It's like the Holy Grail. What is it? That's the ultimate block. And for that, that's where we do the deep dive. Because what happened? Where did you make a connection, or where did you accept a belief that keeps a lie alive?
Right. That keeps you with this self-limiting belief, whether that manifests in self-destructive behaviors or self-loathing or addiction or all of the things that, and you and I have talked about this um after the fact. So one of the things I wanted to ask you is, when you're talking about that people are, if they are working with you and the work that you do with people, that they are not going to be able to lie to you. So, what does the lie look like? I know that often it is fear based, but we've discussed this, that people have a lot of different things, whether that is, um, serious trauma, or whether it is a lack of self confidence, or however that takes shape. But is there a commonality in the lie? Is it presented as a veneer of toughness? What does that look like?
Sometimes it's toughness. Sometimes it's just being so, so nice. You see? There's an aura of incongruency that somehow the eyes, somewhere in your aura, there's something pointing to a discrepancy. There is an incongruency. And well, with a 43-year career, it's really like, oh, please
They're
don't
not gonna
bother.
they're not gonna pull a fast one on you, is what you're saying.
Well, it's just one of those things that, yeah, please don't try to deceive me, because you're only deceiving yourself. Probably not just me is seeing that there is a discrepancy. And as we evolve in our work, in our spiritual work, and this is for everyone, you will learn to detect the inconsistency, because here is somebody who maybe just had a fit or a tantrum, or blew up to kick the dog, or or somebody near, slam doors and whatever. So what is it that's out of alignment? Because what we want is to be able to embody, to demonstrate at all times the that there is alignment, that I am honoring my heart and soul. Consequently, my behavior is respectful and will match all areas. And also that I cannot abide something that may be happening or may be occurring in our world, and I will definitely speak to it or of it, because I am not going to step over something that is, let's say, criminal or offensive. definitely from morality and principle. You see, when I know natural law, I know principle, I know morality, I knew that instantly when I came into the world, and most people do. What happens is that in order to fit in, to be accepted, to be liked, we pretend we don't notice the lies and the fallacies and whatever else exists in those around us. Just because, again, we want to be popular, we want to not rock the ship. And consequently, we turn our heads or we pretend not to see. And that is not in keeping with what we know in our heart and soul. Does that, explain, clarify why the lie can be so obvious or the denial?
Yeah, and I think it does to me because I think that essentially you're describing a disconnect. You're saying one thing, you're presenting a facade in one way, but actually if these particular pieces of being healthy and well adjusted and being self-confident and having worked on if you had trauma or whatever that is, then you wouldn't necessarily be needing the help. You wouldn't necessarily have these blockages or these issues to begin with. So there's a disconnect somewhere is what I was taking from that. Um,
Mhm.
and the one of the things too that I wanted to ask, so as far as people coming to you wanting to work on this, um, themselves and entrepreneurship and this idea of providing freedom for themselves. You said that a lot of them have done work already, but I was curious, do these same people often have some of the issues that we talked about with addiction or people with addiction in their life?
Mhm.
And because in my personal experience, I feel like I have found that there are these patterns that we carry with us and we don't even realize that we're doing those things. So oftentimes I find that dysfunction on whatever scale you're operating on can look like codependency or these other relationship issues that you may have in your personal life or professional life. It seems like there are commonalities that we sort of have, like the codependency element, the addiction element, the trauma element. And of course, it's not going to be the same for everybody, but I was just curious if that is some connection that you have seen in your work because you've done a lot more than just working with people on entrepreneurship, and we can get into that. But I
Correct.
wanted to know what your thoughts were.
Yeah, well, the thing is that addiction plays a big, big part in as a blockage, you see, because addiction to me always speaks of unbearable pain. You see, there is physical, emotional, or spiritual pain that the person cannot abide. Consequently, to make it less painful, we're going to do what? Whether it's a drug, whether it is cigarettes, alcohol, whatever it is, sex, absolutely. Any and all can become addictive behavior. And it's a mechanism, it's a protective mechanism that we align with or we accept or adopt in order to ease the pain that has become oftentimes very, very physical. You see, whether it is, pain in the belly that you have, let's just say, maybe a digestion issue or something in the kidneys or whatever it is, and my teaching or the philosophy where I've gathered all this information is that first of all, something has occurred and it has affected an area of the brain. This is traditional Chinese medicine or New German medicine, actually, that gets very specific as to the area of the brain. And that area connects to an organ or an organ system. And it starts manifesting as a physical ailment. And in order to tolerate the pain, and whether it's spinal or whether it's it doesn't matter because we are all unique. The thing is that there has been a psychological, let's say, impact at one point, and
Psychological injury, perhaps.
injury. Exactly, exactly. Very deeply emotional, and because we're supposed to be big and strong and tough and put our big girl pants on or big boy and whatever, in our world, and especially in this American culture where we're numbing everything below the neck and we're put on drugs, then it's easy to fall into the hands of what I call the enemy, whatever the enemy is, and whether it is an addiction or whatever physical enemy exists, we can fall right into those hands and become easily manipulated and credulous because we can justify when we get into these altered states. So, like I say, a lot of people have the, let's say, and develop an addictive behavior as a protective mechanism, as a, yeah, and I know human nature. I know human nature. We figure out, let's say, it's escape mechanism. It's escape mechanism that we turn to because the injury is so profound, or we just can't deal with the spiritual choice that's in front of us. You see, because that's definitely a factor. We are at choice in every moment. And too often, too many people just don't want to deal with it because those choices are very indicative.
Well, and this is something that we talk about on Nights of the Storm a fair amount, is that it's very difficult, even being as blessed as we are to live in the United States, but the nature of being a human being on this planet, even when you have it very well, I think, and especially with today's day and time, we're dealing with so much craziness politically, geopolitically, um, entertainment, finances, all of these things, dealing with health and wellness and trying to navigate your path through that and trying to educate yourself and figure out the pitfalls of these things. It's really difficult. And then if you add in that like a spouse or children and other family members, it's so hard for people, I think, to just get to that point of being a healthy, well-adjusted person is how I describe that, and to have successful relationships, pursue what you're interested in, become successful. I think it's really difficult in general. So I would like to see if you agree with me on this, Renee. But one of the things that I think of is that oftentimes it's like some of the basic coaching in addiction counseling. The first step is admitting that you have a problem. So I feel like, at least in my personal experience, the first step for me is having an awareness of X, Y, and Z behavior, or when I was working as a massage therapist, and we've talked about the healing modalities before, one of the things that I would coach people on was the first thing that we need to do is to have an awareness of our day-to-day movement. Something like that sounds so basic, but yet most of us are so busy doing whatever we got to do. We're not thinking about, how do I sit? How do I drive? How do I walk? Do I engage the right quad more than the left? Like, do I have gluteal engagement? Things like this that we are not thinking about. Or when I pick something up, am I getting pain in my right shoulder? Like, people are powering through. So do you feel that is true, that part of the first step of us getting through these, passing our blockages or passing through the blockages, is for us to have a recognition of, like, where are our what's the word I'm looking for? Like, problem areas, I guess, maybe what I'm trying to say. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, vulnerabilities. Yeah, very, very definitely. You see, this is the spiritual journey. And I want to make it perfectly clear, for me and for the people I work with, it has nothing to do with religion. It is about the courage and the strength of your spirit, you see, because there's always these choices. And being, let's say, politically correct in the face of losing family favor or losing friends or whatever, very few people have the courage. And it's like, okay, this is the introspection, because we determine values. Where are you, let's say, are you going to be complying? Are you going to be, what part of you are you going to give up in order to have maintain this, let's say, codependent person relationship, or this whatever? What part of you are you willing to deny? And I was so moved a couple of days ago, and I actually made a post of it in preparation for the webinar. And I think I said to you that oftentimes being an entrepreneur, being alone in your journey, because it is an individual journey. Nobody is going to do it with you or for you. This is you and your spirit, you and your God, you and your highest self. And here, there's been many times in my life, in my 43-year career, where I get to this place it feels like just middle of the ocean, and there's nothing other than me, my canoe, and my connection. And so, what's next? What's next? Do I go on with this, or um, do I set it all aside and go write books and dedicate myself to something else, or do I keep on? Because I love my work and I love to be able to help people and shed light on what I consider the most important aspect of everyone's life, and that's the spiritual journey. And so here I'm having these thoughts, do I just forget the book and do something else? And so within hours, I had this email from a former client, and attached to the email there was a link, and she said, Renee, I still think of you. And it was many years ago, and I heard this video today, or this woman, she happens to be Spanish, and I thought of you, and I wanted to send it to you. And it was heartfelt, because she said she heard my voice. It was me speaking. Karen, you're here. Hello. And anyway, I was moved because this is my connection. You see, that I pose the question or the to the universe, and sure enough, I get an answer. I had the reply, and the video was absolutely everything to do with the courage and the strength of your spirit. Are you are you falling into this courage lacking society? Because that's what we're dealing with, and that's what the woman pointed out. And I will send you the link if you're interested in hearing it. But I was so moved because there are no coincidences in my world, in my life. You see, I asked for direction because, okay, there's difficulties, there's challenges, um, and sometimes the road seems like, okay, haven't I done enough?
Right. And you're at a crossroads in some
Always.
ways, right?
It
Yes.
always seems that way. It's always a
Yes.
crossroad. And so I always turn within and I ask, and like I say, within hours, I receive the reinforcement. And for me, the belief has been, or the truth has been, that if I can make a difference whenever to whoever is willing to listen, I will I will keep on.
You're going to keep
And
on going.
yeah, what else? What else? That where else would I find the fulfillment that I have
Yes.
found? You see that?
Okay. I'm so sorry, Renee. Didn't mean to cut you off there, but I
No,
did
no.
want to introduce Karen Carpenter. She's joined us today. Hello, Karen.
Hello.
Hi,
Hi.
Ashley. It's great to see you. Congratulations on your first episode. And thanks for the little kick in the behind to do mine. And it's great to see you too, Renee. I really
Oh,
enjoyed our conversation the last time we got together.
thank you. It's lovely to see you again.
And I love the topic. I was going to talk about addiction and trauma. And uh, I'm on an addiction episode when I'm able to join with Angry Tigers Den the last Wednesday of every month on Rumble. We are doing an addiction recovery
Ah,
episode. And last episode we talked about denial and the steps of grief. And I made the point that I think we have a society that's where denial is systemic in our society at this point, that we're expected to live in denial as a society. And if you break the silence and the code of not noticing or pretending not to notice certain things, that puts you in danger of not being accepted by the group. And I think that speaks to the courage that you're talking about there. So I wondered about your comments on that.
yeah, thank you. Thank you so much because that's precisely what I do address on a consistent basis because our whole society has been conditioned, it's been programmed to give up their sovereignty in the face of disapproval, in the face of losing popularity. And Karen and Ashley, I heard this so many years ago, and it still touches my heart because it was such a loud, clear voice. And please bear in mind, I was 15 when I graduated high school, and consequently, everyone was quite a bit older than I in high school, and it was difficult for me to be with older girls and boys who were doing and indulging in activities that I found rather surprising, and consequently, I well, truthfully, I've never fit in anywhere. Okay, it just was one of those things, and yet, here I was about 11 or 12 when I could see, that I was just a nerd. I was just a studious one, and that was my role in life. And, I would ask, would I ever fit in? Would I ever be popular? And I got this message loud and clear. You're not here to win popularity contests. Subject closed. And, since then, it was never like, I've never gone in that direction. I've accepted not fitting in. I've accepted that I need to be truthful to myself. Consequently, the choices I've made throughout my life, they've always felt that the hand of God, the voice, everything was like in the back of my neck. And this is the way, and it doesn't matter the cost. Yes, I'm human, and yes, I did lose myself momentarily, temporarily. But then again, the loss physically, emotionally, and spiritually were so huge that I could see the universe playing a hand in bringing me back to the reality that the addiction, no, it wasn't acceptable, that I had to maybe learn what it was about, what addiction felt like, to have that experience so that I would never be in judgment of anyone's experience, because I know addiction on a very deep level. And then to come to that realization of losing oneself, and the pain that realization brought. You see, so finding my way back is where the fulfillment comes. I could not live in denial. You see, I tried. So the question, denial is huge in our society. Denial that we're addicted to TV, television, movies, drugs, you name it. And we do that because on some level we're soothing the pain. It's a coping mechanism. We indulge in the addiction to somehow help us navigate. And at some point, either the physical pain actually becomes unbearable. The guilt, the realization that we've sold out is too profound. And often, like I say, the actual crossroads that we meet or that we get to, maybe in our 50s, between that second Saturn return that I've spoken about, gets very, very profound as we age, where it's like things come to a head. And if we bypass, we try to do the spiritual bypass of ignoring and pushing things aside, this is where things get very, very difficult as we age. We become incapacitated, dementia comes in, Alzheimer's, really serious illnesses, because we've tried to step over what is there. I hope I answered.
Well, if I could just say really quick, that is a very good point and a great topic to bring up here, Karen. And yes, that was a great response, Renee, because on the topic of denial, oftentimes we mentioned it on the show, but we hear like awareness is the first step, or admitting that we have a problem is the first step. So let me ask you this, and then I want to see if Karen has a follow-up question, comment once you finish, Renee. But what is normally the thing that gets people to admit to the addiction or to the distraction, being addicted to being distracted. Because this is one of the things I think that we even talk about in regards to politics or health choices, whatever that may be. But oftentimes people, because of their previously established trust in an institution, then they are unwilling, whatever that institution looks like, they're very unwilling to admit, or ask the hard questions, or certainly when it comes to a relationship that may be toxic for you, or addiction, or any of these things, like what is usually the thing that gets people to at least have that acknowledgement that yes, an issue is present. And oftentimes I think we hear the common knowledge is that that person has to hit rock bottom.
Mhm.
And some people subscribe to that, and I wanted to see, what your thoughts were. But I also think, like, what if it doesn't have to come to that? But what if somebody knows that they have more potential, or they want to feel better, be better, whatever that may look like? But what is that line? What is the crossroads that you've seen?
Oh, that is the pain of it for me, because I see so many who lie to themselves, saying that they're managing their addiction. You see, that they're not addicted at all. That they just indulge in this little flower or this little whatever, it can't possibly be harmful because it's natural. Well, I hate to tell you, it does. When you go into that state where you are in that, let's say, trance or whatever it's induced, you are, let's say, vulnerable to having floating spirits. And you and I have talked about the egregores, the Ahriman, as opposed to the Luciferian energies that are floating around, eager to jump into someone who is not present in their body. And I am sorry, this is inevitable. And to lie to oneself, saying, oh, no, I'm totally in charge. I am totally unconscious, very, very conscious, and nothing is going to step in. Oh, come on. No, it does step in. And let's say the biggest fallacy is that it plays into your subconscious. You, or let's just say the universal you is thinking that they're absolutely untouched, that they're that they're masters of their consciousness and whatever. But there is that little bit. It's like a seed that gets planted in the subconscious. And it's like, what is the graphene that was embedded, and that now we have these little tiny robots that are building inside the physical body.
Yes,
Well,
the
that's
self-assembling
nanobot.
nanoparticles.
All right. Well, yeah, that's in the physical, but also in the spiritual. It's also occurring. And you see, Steiner, in his brilliance, predicted that. He knew what was going to happen. And I have seen this. You see, that people, as brilliant and powerful as they are, and they absolutely will argue with me. And I've had many, especially men, and I remember this one in particular, Arthur. He had done quite a bit of work with me, and he was just really incredible. He insisted he was going to go to a shaman in Peru, and do the ayahuasca. And I said, beware. Yes, you are strong. Yes, you are powerful. And I assure you, you may be surprised as to who you become under the influence of that shaman. Beware. And he went. I can't decide for people. I am not here to control anyone. I am here to guide and then, shed some light as to what can happen. And sure enough, he came back just so arrogant and, letting me know that absolutely he was the same. And I said, you're not. Something shifted in your field. I can see it. You don't notice it consciously. You will in due time. And that's what occurs, you see. So those blind spots are there. And it makes those blind spots do make life easier for people to navigate this particular reality. Because then we can be politically correct. We can be, excellent. Or we can be, our idea of whatever. But it may not be really authentic. It may not be real. And that's what I'm after. That with the entrepreneurship, yes, we're going to dig in so that you can access the authentic aspect of who you are without the structure that maybe has been building in your field. Remember, we've got the etheric body, we have the astral, we have the energy body. There's so many layers of a being. Most people aren't aware. And I remember, this was not all that long ago when I met a supposed spiritual teacher. And she had no clue what the astral body was. And I asked, how can you call yourself a spiritual teacher if you don't know the layers of the being? She says, well, I never heard that. And I says, well, maybe there's need of some, in-depth training, because you need to know about the chakra systems and what each relates to in the body, in the physical, as well as the spiritual. So it's being a human being. It's an absolute privilege. It's a thrill. And to abuse on any level, I personally hold that as being very disrespectful of God, nature, the very soul that is responsible for your existence, for each individual existence. And you see, that soul is not relying on anyone's approval other than right here, because nobody is doing it with you. And when you leave this plane, it's you and you meeting Supreme Creator. No one whose approval you might have complied for or given up of yourself for will be there. You see, and this is where I say, reading the Divine Comedy, reading Faust is essential reading for everyone, because these masters wrote the truth of existence. They were clairvoyant. They were incredible people who knew, who understood what a lot of us have spent our lives learning. Yeah, no, I honor and I treasure these great masters. And what we have now, this hodgepodge of people wanting survival, that we've been conditioned to do whatever at any cost just to survive and to have the economic or the financial success at the expense of your soul. It doesn't sail. No.
Yes. So that is one thing that I do want to get into is the definition of success, because that is something you speak specifically about. Is it is not about the money. But before we move on, I wanted to circle back to Karen, get her thoughts on the last couple of topics or comments that we talked about, and just see what you think, or other questions.
Well, I really enjoy being in your presence, Renee. And
Thank you.
The eighth sphere is one of my favorite topics, Steiner's eighth sphere. So I'm curious your views on that, and possibly the role that technology may be playing in that, and the building of the eighth sphere. That's one of AI is one of my pet peeves, or things that really I am just really concerned about, and so I'm curious what you think about that. And also, I've done a tremendous amount of work in my life on a lot of these areas, and I find that just when I think I have that little pile in all nice and tidy and everything all cleaned up and just relax a little bit, boom, it's all over the room again. It hits the fan. So what kind of maintenance do you recommend? I think being present, as you were mentioning, being present in your body, and giving yourself time to center is crucial. And we have so many things working against us in finding the time to do that. So I just wanted to mention those few topics there.
Oh, thank you so much, because yes, absolutely. These are great concerns to me also. For me, the AI, it's taking us into transhumanism and this whole agenda. Karen, Ashley, I can't tell you how much I've cried when I see this impending disaster. I've been seeing it for the last 43, all of my life. I knew where we were going to be heading. And I thought, oh, dear God, I don't want to live long enough to see this. And here we are. Mm-hmm. And I think, oh, dear God, what is happening to our humanity? I can't bear it. I can't bear the sellout that people who I'm feeling betrayed, because the AI is so seductive. And I have seen my peers, please remember how long I've been in this. And my peers were on stage with me making presentations from a spiritual perspective. And then I see Deepak Chopra developing his own clone and, whatever avatar. And then another Jean Houston becoming, and then Marianne Williamson, and all of these people, and I think what's becoming of our world if these supposed leaders are turning their back for the sake of monetary gain, what is to become of our world? And yes, it's definitely of great concern. And yes, Steiner had predicted it long ago. So we're on the verge. And what I have studied, and Steiner did bring this up, and actually Gurdjieff did too, the existence, of Atlantis, not just once, twice, 3 times. Here we are. It's a repeat. repeat of what's been done to our humanity before. So when, there's people who will not accept reincarnation, and I say, well, that's your option. But from Gurdjieff, the teaching is remember who you are. And it's in that remembrance that is of major value for me, and from my experience in observing my own processing healing, is in being able to see that trauma can play out in different ways. That sometimes trauma can be of such shock that it erases completely. Any memory is erased because of the shock that occurs. And you are left bereft in present time with no memory of having come from God, from this greater universe, universal ocean, let's say. And shock, trauma can also take you into a crucial remembering. That's what happened to me. That in those initial traumas, and there were several, that I was able to remember. I'd been there before. I had experienced that before. This was not a first round, not my first rodeo in being used and abused, and that I had seen both sides of the use and abuse. So this is the reward, let's say, when we are able to recall. And with that, with Gurdjieff and Steiner, they both made reference to the being, to what we hold in our consciousness. And can we access the memories, make those connections to our abilities and skills that we have held in other lifetimes, and use them in this particular existence, this particular incarnation. I have been given those gifts. I earned, I owned, I felt the Holy Spirit when I was 7, because I was in such despair. I wanted to die at 7 because the shame was too profound, the physical horror of what had happened. I felt it, I understood it. I saw the ill effects, and I wanted to die. I did not want to live. And I feel that God has maybe a special place or compassion for children. And consequently, I have held that in my consciousness, and I was able, or have been able, to remember and develop the skills. And I don't claim them as my own. I always say it's Christ in me. It's not me. It's Christ in me that does the work, because that is what came into me at 7. And I've been honoring it, respecting it, and loving that all of my life. So the skills that were granted, I treasure. And yes, I will use them when the time is, you know, well, when there is a critical situation. And, heaven knows there's been many throughout my life where I have used them. And like I say, I always make it very clear, it's not me. It's not me. So this is the where we are now, and the pain of that this transhumanist agenda is unfolding, and that people are being seduced by the ease that AI brings to the table. From my perspective, I have no use for it. I will avoid it as much as I can. I will use it, yes. Right now we are using it, but no, I will not use it to have it write my articles or anything. No, this is authentic work, and this is where I won't post my book for sale anywhere, because I know what will happen to it. Because I feel that it's channeled work. It was given to me because I look at my book and I look at it with gratitude, and I'm just like, I am honored by what is in the book. I know that it wasn't me, just me. Somehow it was delivered, and I put it into a book. It's a manual and a book, and that's where my webinar work comes from. But no, it's not a book for mass publication. No, I won't allow that.
And I really think that this is where, in exactly what you've been describing about your experience and what you went through and how you got here, one of the major themes is being uncompromising on what you know and feel convicted about, what you feel is the right thing, as well as humanity. And that is why I think it's so important. What you're saying is for us to maintain our humanity. Karen says this all the time in this crazy technical world. And I think that's a huge piece of awareness that I hope that people are realizing that that is what makes us important and, in my opinion, threatening to the predator class, because that is the thing that they will never understand is humanity. And if you do get super involved into whatever they're offering, into their temptations, then you're playing their game and you're risking losing your humanity in that regard. And I do think that part of, propaganda and controlling human behavior is there's all elements of that is causing people to behave in a way that would not maybe be natural to them. Um
Yeah.
so one thing that I wanted to ask you about is your definition of success, because there's a lot of, we're shifting gears here a little bit, but there's a lot of talk out there. If you go on to YouTube or maybe take some other class or something, it's like, oh, be an entrepreneur, make 10,000 a month on your own in your first month, or whatever that looks like. But there's this idea of what it means to be successful, but I was hoping that you could talk to us about your idea of success when people work with you, when they take your class or our conversations, and they are pursuing success. They're trying to get through their emotional and spiritual blockages. What does success look like for you?
Oh wow, those are that's a question that can make me cry, because I know success means different things for different people, and for me, it's being at peace with creation, with myself, with my soul, knowing that I am taken care of, that I am provided for, No, I do not have a mansion. I do not have a Ferrari, and or any of the trimmings or any of the fixings. And no, and having a surgery is not it's not even a consideration. For a lot of people, success means different things. For me, it's just being at ease with myself, knowing that I've made a difference, and it's getting a, an email from a long ago client telling me, how much their work meant with me, meant to them, or still means to them, how they remember me, and how, something they heard resonates with what I taught them. And that's my idea of success. Longevity, that's what's meant everything to me, you see. So it's a matter of values. It's what's important to people. And what's painful, as you know, I wasn't born in this country. And when I have observed people worshiping at the foot of false idols, whether it is oh my gosh, Joe DiMaggio. I remember absolutely, that was one of the first really shocks that I had many years ago. And I thought, why, he's nothing but a scumbag. Why would people be, making an idol out of him? Oh my word, he is such a pervert. And, in my mind, I'm going on, and as well as with others who I have observed in my lifetime. And I thought, what is the matter with the value system here? This is just not in alignment with what I profess. Why is it that, I lived in Marin, and here it's like women putting up with indecent and unspeakable behavior from their mates, the selling out. So that was really offensive to me. It has always been. And it's the way of, I guess, it's worshiping at the golden calf. It doesn't matter who it is, but it's who's got the most gold or who has the most whatever toys. That's what seemed so important in the American culture. And it just doesn't fly. Not, definitely from Karen's and Ashley's and my conversations in the past. And obviously there's other people in our world who relate to this conversation. And yet we know that there's others who will sell out for the whatever, the golden calf, the position, for some scumbag of a man, because he's got the money or because he's got the status. Well, that to me is irrelevant. It's what's in the heart and mind and the soul of the person. That's what counts. So am I addressing the question? I'm sorry if I went off the tangent.
No, I think that you did address it, because I think that we talk about what is success. And I think that for you, what you're saying is success is being able to lay my head down at night and knowing that I didn't sell out for something that I believed in order to make a quick buck or to get ahead financially in life.
Exactly. I've never been able to do that. And it mystifies me as to how people can do that and live with themselves, you see? And then, they want to have the whatever surgeries and this and that. And I think, beauty is from within. It's who you are, what you represent, it's your values and your contribution. So it's like the Club for Creative Expression came into being because I wanted to help people access something that is sacred inside, their authenticity. What makes your heart sing? And it's not, winning popularity contests. And in the end, it's how you feel about you that counts. And this is where, my creator and I have had the long conversations. Is this enough? Or what do I do now? I'm in that mode, the conversation of what I find fulfilling and rewarding. So often what we've been programmed to believe through the movies, through popularity contests, whatever you call it, that has misdirected people into valuing something that is so phony, so fake. It's just not real, because ultimately it's you and you. Will you be able to live with yourself when you look, and I see, okay, it's not about judgment or anything, but okay, so this behavior wasn't totally in alignment with who I want to become or who I want to be. So I wouldn't do that again. And so now I am growing, I am expanding, and I'm me.
And that
Because
sounds like success.
that is the ultimate success in my mind. A lot of people just see that, okay, so you don't have a mansion and you don't have the Ferrari, and so what? At this point in life, maybe at some point the Ferrari would have made a difference. Yes, I did have a Porsche at one time. And then, okay, you put that aside because now it's not relevant, not to this time in existence. You see, so we grow, we expand, and we fulfill our hearts in a different way. So have I answered your question? And you
Yes.
can.
Yes, and I was going to go to Karen and see if she had anything to add or any more questions, but I think it does answer the question, because it is, what is your definition of success? And that is staying true to yourself. It is recognizing some of the financial or fancy pitfalls that are presented to you, and being able to put your head down at night and know that you did the best that you could to stay true to yourself. And I think that is I find that to be a worthy definition of success. And yeah, so I think you answered that. And I wanted to check with Karen. What do you think, Karen?
Well, I think that the spirit of whatever spirit you want to call it, Ahriman or Lucifer or Satan, whatever you want to, whatever you want to use, I do think we're in a spiritual battle here.
Mhm.
And that's become more apparent than ever, especially with the encroachment and seductiveness of AI. And so many of the things that you mentioned are so seductive. And I think that it's those negative influences that have so much power on us, or that pull us in, and then we don't feel good, we don't feel fulfilled, we don't feel true to ourselves, even if we don't realize it consciously, and then we end up engaging in a lot of the behaviors that to help us numb that nagging sense of emptiness in ourselves, because we're not truly being true to ourselves or true to our divine nature. But so one thing I wanted to ask you about when you are on Nights of the Storm also, do you have a role using hypnosis in your work, or past life regressions, or quantum hypnosis along the lines of uh, what's her name? Dorothy Cannon?
Yeah.
Dolores Cannon, that's it. So I'm curious. I was just curious about that, or the role that you feel hypnosis can play in healing, or in your work.
Oh, well, thank you for that question. Yes, I do use hypnotherapy as as an ability to get past the conscious denial, you see, because people, they're reluctant to look at their truth. And so they create a mask of who and what they are. They pretend to be something they're really not. And I want to get to the truth of that. So was it an injury in this lifetime that caused the person to want to create a facade, you see, of being so nice, so whatever. Let's see how that structure came about. Why did you arrive at that image? Let's look at the truth. What was the injury? Was it in this lifetime? Was it you, the baby, or, maybe as a child, wanting to gain favor from the mother or the family or someone? Or was it even transgenerational? Was it in a past life where you compromised, where the soul spirit compromised itself for the sake of survival? And we want to be able to heal that and to understand why you made that choice. You see, often we're just human. We're just human, and we're afraid of not making a compromise. You see, it's always fear that, it's like we make excuses. And then we evolve. And then we come into this particular existence where, it's like, okay, you're going to either confront yourself and go on to an elevated consciousness or conscious state of being, or you're going to once again recycle. We have a choice. I demanded full consciousness. Obviously, the two of you and those who hear my, what I'm saying on this level, they too know that I'm speaking truth, and they too want to elevate. They do not want to keep recycling because of a lie that they are buying, or that they want to live in a particular way. You see, that is, it's like when push comes to shove, that we look realistically. Can we be bold and stand for what we know is the truth of our existence? You see, can I honor where I've been, where I come from, why I had to endure the trauma that I have? I'm asking that of myself, and I would ask anyone to ask that of themselves. You see, Am I in denial in some way to be able to tolerate this lifetime? And consequently, the work, yes, it is intense. And that's why I say, no, it's not for everyone, because you get very close and personal in being able to strip the, let's say, the shields, the mirrors. This is where, what have you created? Is it what? An addiction? Is the addiction food? Is the addiction drug? Is the addiction sex? What? Addictions come in all different shapes. And believe me, I've seen them all. In 43 years, I have seen them all. And yes, there are those who will accuse me of being irreverent because they really want to hang on to the structure that they've built. And then there are those who pull off the mask and become who they were meant to be. And I have had the honor of facilitating many onto their greatness. I am like in awe of those people. And what can I say other than the privilege of having that kind of honesty, integrity, to be there, for my person to be there. I do not judge. Why? How? How could I? I've been the worst.
Do you think, Renee, sometimes people just need somebody to believe in them and love them, and encourage them?
Oftentimes, absolutely, that is exactly what they need. And a lot of the people, yes, who I have worked with, come to me for that because they know I am all about unconditional acceptance and love. I cannot judge. I do not. How could I? I come from the worst. And so there is, another side, there is something else. And it does take courage, and it does take the willingness to strip down and become real. This is why I love the Velveteen Rabbit, that fairy tale. Yeah, because, to love ourselves truly as we are in the face of the wrinkles and the, whatever aging and whatever comes, whatever is given to us, but to know that there is that something within us that is absolutely perfect, and to connect with that, because that is the ultimate desire, you see, that somehow we can emulate, at least emulate, if not embody, you see. And that's what I've been holding, I guess, since I went into business 43 years ago. It's about the becoming.
Right. And you're facilitating and helping people to get to that point, which is amazing.
Well, I am, it's indeed a privilege, and to have been in business this long as an entrepreneur, to me, it's a gift beyond words, because who would have imagined? I certainly didn't. And then all of a sudden it was what? 38 years. And then all of a sudden it's 43. I thought, oh my God, how did that happen? Because all
Right.
of a sudden, time just,
And your refusal to quit. And that was one of the other things, like what you were talking to us about tonight, is being faced with these crossroads of resistance or of what the trials and tribulations of life, and you praying about what is the next step. And it has always been to this point to keep going and to not compromise what you feel truly convicted about. So I think that's incredible, and an incredible example for all of us trying to learn and get better, to be better humans and get better at life in this earthly realm. So I wanted to check in with Karen really quick, and then maybe a couple more questions before we wrap up and tell everyone where they can find you and all that good stuff, Renee. Karen, what do you
thank
think?
I think that the gift of unconditional love and acceptance is very rare, and one of the greatest gifts that you can receive or give. And so I commend you for giving that safe space to people to feel comfortable enough to be themselves and supported and grow.
Oh, it's been such a privilege, really, because I see the perfection and the beauty, you see, because people, it's like yourselves. It's like, in your hearts and souls what is truth. You know what is real. You're not seduced by the glitter and the whatever that is so seductive in our world, because there is that great temptation. And yet there are those who come and connect with me because they know that there's something that's been missing. Somehow they have not made the connection. And for me, I am always deeply honored, deeply grateful, and I always end up crying with every client.
I worked with kids. I was a teacher, and I take a lot of flack for working in the school system from our community here, but just to be able to support children and see them as people and encourage them, I think that's a value. I feel really good about having been able to do that. So I understand.
Yeah, yeah, because we are, you know, in process, and we're guided. We have an innate guiding system that can take us into the realm or the connection that is heartfelt, that is soul directed. And too often, the, what do you call it, the intellect enters because that's not going to make money. And, well, maybe it will, but maybe it's beyond that. How is it? Did I share with you, Ashley, that it is like being in an ocean? Yeah,
Yes. Yep. And a lonely place sometimes.
very lonely because you don't see. And there's certainly no guarantees when you follow your heart blindly, because that's how it's felt much of the time, most of the time. Or 43 years is a long, long time, believe me. And much of the time, yeah, you're not seeing the shore, you're not seeing much. And so, okay, next step, how do I support myself? Okay, so like a part-time job, something, clean houses. This is the immediate, whatever it takes, the willingness that if this is what I need to do to create, and I don't say it's for everyone, but definitely it was for me because I am so stubborn. And I was never going to give my family, my perverse family, the satisfaction of telling me anything that would make them happy at my expense. You see, that was the ultimate thing, um, because I am who I am, and I have been since I was 7, and they just never really expected anything of me, from me, as I departed from my corporate job, my ex-husband, and went on my own and went back to school and did what I needed to do so that I could be independent, autonomous, and whatever. And it's not been easy. But I wasn't about to give them the satisfaction of letting me hear I told you so.
Yeah. Well, I think that you really addressed that was basically going to be my kind of final question before we tell people where they can find you and how to touch base with you, Renee, is why entrepreneurship? So I think that if you're just a casual looker, there could seem to be a disconnect between your personal wellness journey and becoming healthy and overcoming addiction and working on your relationship with God and your spiritual wellness and all of these things. What does that have to do with entrepreneurship?
Everything, everything, because it's being on your own, trusting yourself blindly, and knowing that, yeah, you may hit bottom, and that means getting a job, and that may mean cleaning houses, whatever, and having cancer in the process, because that's part of my journey. And having that wherewithal that you say to your creator, okay, your call. Where to from here? Because I am in the middle of an ocean. I've got my canoe and I got you. And it's sink or swim. And I'm fine with either.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important point because when you're speaking to us, being fine with either means that you're not coming at where you go in life from a fearful place, which is how we started this episode. That is one of the huge blockers of many of us, and I am certainly guilty of that, of procrastination through a million different means. But I think that the fear and the fear of vulnerability and things like that are certainly an element of that. And I think that what you're describing is you just being to the point where I'm going to be okay with myself and the decision that I make based on my relationship with God and myself, no matter what. I know that I'm going to be okay. And that's a security that's not easy to come by.
No, it isn't. And I acknowledge that. And please bear in mind where I came from, that I was born into, well, the first 3 years were good. I was, well, relatively good. No one paid much attention to me other than to make me cute. Um, but at 3, things changed, and it was terror, not just fear, but terror. That became a part of me, allowing or feeling terror at that young, as a baby, and remembering that, and knowing that I had probably experienced what most people don't experience ever in their lives. I experienced terror at 3, and that was alive and well in me. It wasn't just somebody's idea of fear. No, it was embodied. I felt it, and my body survived it somehow at the expense of whatever. And having had that as a reference point, and I felt if I've experienced that and I survived it, who knows? Am I going to survive this feeling in the middle of the ocean now? And it's not that I didn't experience fear again. Oh, no, no, no. It's been alive and well. Oh, no, my kidneys can attest to it. Yeah, my kidneys have had a time recovering because, again, the mind-body-soul connection. So the fear has definitely been an item in my life. And because of the anger that I felt, I was not going to fold because I knew that those that had created the fear were looking at me and were expecting me to fold and go with what they wanted, to relinquish my sovereignty and to just say, I give up and I'm going to follow the family tradition. I said, well, I won't make any gestures. I said, the hell. I will not. And I don't care if I starve or if I drown. I really don't at this point because I've seen and felt the worst. Yes, fear resides. It has always been there. No, it's not that I'm fearless, as some people have thought so. Absolutely not. Fear has been there every step of the way. Let me assure you. In my moves to live in Spain, in those moves to move and live in Mexico, and all these whatever I've done, yeah, fear's been there. I'm not fearless. I just do it anyway.
I love that. Karen, thoughts?
I commend your courage, and it's hard. It's a difficult thing to find, and I definitely struggle with that, and with having the courage to take a risk. It's a difficult thing to do, and I hear your struggle about procrastination, Ashley. We also have to give ourselves the grace sometimes because we are human, and I also am really hard on myself. So that's something
yeah.
I have to work on too.
Yeah. And that is the message. That's why I wrote the book. It's called The Ultimate Love Affair. Because we are human. And so often we allow the fear to rule over us. And we make compromises, you see. And this is where, it's like in this moment in time, I want to maybe inspire people and have them or have everyone connect to that peace of God within each of us that is fearless. Because overall, it does exist in us if we make the connection, if we allow ourselves to connect with that divine aspect and realize that we are so much more than flesh, than the material, that there is something in us that is sacred and divine. And to what extent will I honor that? So for me, I was never fearless. I was defiant and angry, rebellious, all of those things that aren't politically correct anymore, because people now should be very holy and not display emotion, because we are in need of numbing from the neck down instead of voicing the rage that rightfully should be voiced. And that is, I sense, maybe that's part of why God keeps me alive, has kept me alive, because I still hope to encourage and maybe inspire some who have a lot more to lose than I ever did. I
Yeah.
was, my life, yes, as a child, but I survived. And then since, because I was so angry, there's been that, it's like that life-saving energy and component driving me.
Yeah. Well, I definitely think that you continue to inspire people, Renee. Obviously, Karen and I are two of those people. And, I love speaking with you, and I'm very grateful for our continued relationship and your vulnerability here. It's not easy talking about all of these things and your honesty and your sharing your wisdom with us. So I really appreciate it. And I know we could talk forever and ever and ever, but I think that we've covered a good amount of topics. But what I want to tell people is how they can find you. And if they want to get in touch with you, can they email you, etc.?
Absolutely, they can email me. I have, oh my gosh, I'm all over the place. Yes, freedom and empowerment. No, freedom through entrepreneurship at gmail.com is one email.
And I will update this
Oh,
and put that in the notes, Renee.
okay.
So people don't have to remember that. I'll drop it in the notes for them to reach out to you.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Yeah. And then I know I'm working on a little video that maybe we will direct people on it. Once I get it together, I will forward it to you, and maybe you can give me a plug every once in a while. However, yeah, whatever. It's fine. It would be lovely. But I do thank you so much for letting me speak and having both of you here. I'm honored to be your first guest on your new endeavor here. So I love new endeavors, new entrepreneurial endeavors. That's yeah, remarkable. I knew you would. I just didn't know when.
Well, I think it's pretty fitting. And as I had said at the beginning of the show, I, had been dragging my feet on this a little bit. And you and I just ended up having a conversation. And I had some other people that were pushing me in a loving way. And so I felt like this was meant to be. And as you said earlier, you don't believe in coincidences. And it was just the timing of our conversation. And I felt like I am fearful. Definitely. I am nervous. I've been nervous for like 48 hours now, chewing my nails. I don't chew my nails, but I'm mentally chewing my nails. And just decided that we needed to go ahead and do it. Just do it. So here we are. And I'm going to put the links for Renee's website, reneedevereaux.com, and then her other website, freedomthroughentrepreneurship.com as well, and her Gmail address. So there are a few different ways for you to get in touch with Renee. And as always, if anyone has any questions at all, feel free to email me at ThinkChangeRepeat@gmail.com. And I am happy to share this contact information with you or follow up or any of that stuff. So before we get out of here, I did want to touch base with Karen. Karen, let everyone know where they can find you. I know where to find you. Our paths cross often, but you have a couple things that you're also working on. You have a show that you're going to be doing. Just tell us whatever you want to about what you got going on.
Thank you. Renee, I'm doing a show about the foibles, the dangers and implications transhuman-wise of Botox with Courtney Turner on April 21st at 5 p.m. Pacific on Courtney's X, and then we'll I think we're going to pre-record, run it live on a couple of Courtney's platforms, and then upload it to Nights of the Storm. Courtney and I have been working on this for a couple of months, but
Okay.
but we have to keep having to reschedule. Her husband is ill, so Courtney's Turner's husband could use prayers. And then I am on Nights of the Storm with Ashley on Saturdays at 11 a.m. Pacific and 2 p.m. Eastern. And then I am the assistant to DJ Angry Tiger on Saturday nights on Angry Tiger's Den for Tiger Tales. And so I hope that you'll join us for some for a DJ set list and mixing of our requests. So you can bring your requests. We have a lot of fun. And then also, where do we do the last Wednesday of the month? We're going to be doing a addiction recovery episode on Angry Tiger's Den at 5:30 Pacific with Ann Christ, who is a retired drug counselor. So
Okay.
she's kind of our lead with that. So I look forward to that, and I hope that people will join us. And it was a true pleasure and honor to spend time with you, Renee, this evening.
Oh,
And
Karen.
Ashley, congratulations, and you go, girl.
Yeah, absolutely. You go, girl. Congratulations. And again, I thank you so much. And Karen, it's a pleasure to see you again and to make contact, and best wishes with your projects there.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that Karen is also going to be working on her show too. So we'll have more to talk about as we go. And this one's for Deb. I don't think I have not seen her in the chat, but this is the final, because we always talk about the Minnesota goodbye and the Southern goodbye. Renee, Karen knows about it. And I am, listen, I can do a Southern goodbye, meaning it's going to take forever. So here we are. I drag it out. But first of all, I want to thank you, Renee, for being here. I want to thank you for our conversations. You know, I love you, and I feel we have felt connected from the minute that we ever talked to each other.
Yes.
And so I'm so grateful to have had you here. I want to thank Karen for coming on, always having amazing insight, wisdom, banging questions, so pertinent, adding to the conversation. I really appreciate it. I also want to say thank you to Jason Barker. I know this is not an Oscar acceptance speech, but I did just for my first episode. I have a couple people that I need to shout out. So just bear with me, everybody. But Jason, he allowed me to set up on the Nights of the Storm stream. So that's where some folks are watching, and also offered his help with like helping me get my StreamYard studio set up, all that good stuff. I also want to shout out to my friend Doc Spoiler, our buddy Doc Rock, that we know that does movie night presentations on Saturday night and Monday night. Doc has helped me with graphics. He made me a really like a super nice image today of one of the images that he does, and the guy was holding up a sign that said "Good luck, Ashley," and he's helping me with some of the graphics and music, all that good stuff for my show. So, and he's been a big supporter of me and Knights of the Storm as well. So much appreciation there. Also, my friend Billy Ray Valentine. Billy helped me with my logo that I don't have displayed here right now. And encouragement. Also, Wheezy on What is Truth was also encouraging in this venture. And then my friend Ray of the Radical Truth podcast, she has definitely been one of the primary people to say, when are you doing your show? When are you doing your show? When are you doing your show? So I really appreciate that. And then, of course, everybody that showed up in chat and has given me encouragement along the way, I definitely needed it and appreciated it. So I'm just going to shout out the chat really quick. Carl and Hanny was here. Doc Spoiler, JB, Ray, Ray K, Rachel. Franco was over on my Rumble channel. So thank you so much for everything, Franco. Sweets with the links. She supports us. We really appreciate her. Little John, Do Not Obey, Narrow Way, Narrow Gate, Levi, Dustin Hill, Nostradamus, all people that I have met through being part of Knights of the Storm, and amazing supportive people. So Robin Lee as well dropped in. And if there's anyone else that I missed, Karen knows what I normally do on Knights of the Storm, which is blame Jason. And he was actually, he was helping me tonight. So if anybody gets missed, let's just blame Jason as usual. But, okay, so I think that's everything. Thank you, everybody, for bearing with me. I don't exactly know the format, the time, all these things. I'm still figuring it out, but I super appreciate you being here. It means so much. And I think that's it for now. So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, you can email me at ThinkChangeRepeat@gmail. Jason said that he is going to get the contact info for the show and all that good stuff up on the knightsofthestorm.com friends page, like the schedule stuff that Jason has. And okay, I think I've taken enough of everyone's time. Renee, thank you so much. Big hugs to you. Karen, thank you. So happy to see you tonight. And I hope everyone has a wonderful evening. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Ashley. Much love.
Much love.
Thank you, Karen. Everyone. Good night. Thank you.